Welcome to Inspirations TV, where our intention is not only to inspire you, but to offer you helpful tools and resources of valuable information to assist you in living a fulfilling life in all areas. Today, we'll be discussing finding happiness as a sole parent with life coach Leanne Brisbane. Leanne is passionate about personal development work, and she works with people to expand their comfort zones and to find happiness. Leanne is the can-do coach who teaches from both personal and professional life experience, along with 10 years of study in the area of personal development. As a single mom, Leanne is busily developing an online program for other single moms to help navigate some of the emotional challenges that arise from being a single parent and to help women discover self-love and acceptance. And thank you. Welcome to the show, Miss Leanne Brisbane. Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Nazra.
Absolutely. Great. So I'm really excited and pumped about today's episode because this is a different subject than any of my other episodes thus far. We're really going to be talking about finding happiness as a sole parent. And I think that's such an important topic for viewers because we're all like really needing, as much information as we can to just help navigate our lives, like not just during this time, but just in general. So why not you first start telling us about what really inspired you to become a life coach to begin with?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a bit of a journey for me because I started off as a PT. I was always really interested in health and fitness, and I found going through my late teenage years and early 20s that really helped me stay well mentally, because when we move our body, it has a connection to our mind and it just helps us feel good. So I thought, well, I want to help people so I can become a PT and help people that way. So through my experience in that field and my training, I started working with clients. But what I actually found was that people, they would come to me and they would do the work, and I could motivate and inspire them when they were with me. But then when they went away, they weren't doing the things that they said they wanted to do. So whether that was weight loss or getting strong, like you can't come and have one session a week and expect to have those results. So it's on people to then go away and do that. So I was thinking, what's going on here? Because I'm doing the best job I can do when my clients are with me, but they're not getting the results that they want to get. So that got me on a bit of a questioning of why. So then as I went on, when I hit about 30, I discovered Bob Proctor. Now, his work for me was just revolutionary.
So great.
So it's just the way that he looks at things and explains things. And I must say that when I first saw it, it was like, huh? Like, that's a bit interesting. But as you start to look into that more, it kind of just took a lid off my mind and thought, wow, this is really interesting. And then that started me kind of like on a journey of self-discovery and self-study of personal development and why do I do what I do and how can I apply that to other people? Because we're all the same. It doesn't matter where we're from. We might have a different accent or we might live in a different country, but really as humans, we're all the same. So as I started to kind of study myself more, I thought there's something to this. And then I started linking that back to the PT side of things. And personal training is definitely about being healthy, but a lot of the focus is on the outside. It's like the weight loss or the muscle growth or how we look rather than how we think. And what I actually worked out was there's a bit of a triangle that goes on. So I had the two parts. Like you've got the nutrition, so you can tell your clients how to eat well. You can tell them what exercises to do and how often they should do that. But without the third part, which I think is mindset, it doesn't tie together. So from that and that study, I thought, well, the best way that I'm going to be able to help people is to be a coach and to work more so with the mind than with the body. And the benefit I have with that is I understand the concepts and principles behind the PT side of things as well. So if a goal that people have is to lose weight and be healthier, of course, I mean, I've got that information as well.
Yeah.
But really, it starts here. And that's why I became a coach, to be able to genuinely help people to not depend on me, but to depend on them. Yeah.
Definitely. I think that's such a huge point, because I have had friends over the years that are either nutritionists or personal trainers also, and they just have gotten really frustrated because without, like you said, without that added component of making it more cohesive, there's just such a disconnect. And when you have a disconnect, you just can't really facilitate any kind of lasting change over, any duration of time. So yeah. I think that's really smart. And I also think about, Jillian Michaels. I think one of the reasons why she's so successful is because she, like you, she understands those components and really tying everything together to help people really get the why. Because that was something that you mentioned earlier, Leanne, is that you were like, why? Like, what is the reason why? Because I think it's so easy to just go like, oh, well, you didn't eat enough of this, or you ate too much of this, or what have you. But you go a lot deeper into that why, which I think is huge.
You definitely have to, though, because if your why isn't big enough, you're not going to do it, right? So you say, I use like Jillian Michaels as an example. So I had this exercise video that she does, and it was hard. It wasn't easy, and we were doing jumping jacks, and they're not easy to continue doing jumping jacks. But she made the point that I've got 200-pound people that do these jumping jacks. Don't quit, just keep it going. And you think, well, it's the limitations we place on ourselves as to what we think we can do or what we can't do, and our why comes into that. So if our why is small and it's like, oh, yeah, I'd like to do that, that would be nice, it's not enough to make yourself do jumping jacks when they hurt. Right. But if you make your why super strong, that you want to be fit and healthy and live a long life so you can see your grandchildren, that's a different why. Or everyone has different reasons. And I think that's a beautiful thing I experience as being a coach, is that I get to learn what people's reasons are, and not just learn what they are, but help people uncover their reasons. Because some people don't even have that connection to, why do I actually want to do this? Like, they know they want to, or they know they have to, but they can't connect that why, which therefore stops that motivation, So it's great to be able to work with people in that capacity.
I totally agree. I love your title, the can-do coach. I love that. It's just it really evokes a lot of emotion and experience, personal experience from me. Because when you say about the why, I remember for years growing up, since I was a kid, in PE, like our physical education class, we would always, do a mile, run a mile. And it was literally 4 laps around, and that was going to be your mile. I could barely get around it once without panting. And I just kind of came to the conclusion, unfortunately, as a child, literally as a child, not even as an adult, but as a child, I can't do it. Everybody was spinning past me, and I'm still on lap 1. I just could not get it. And it wasn't literally until about 2 years ago, I went to a gym, and I never really joined gyms. It wasn't my thing. It was just one of those things where I just thought, oh, well, I'm skinny, I don't need to go to a gym. But that's not the same thing as actually being healthy. When you're getting breathy walking up a flight of stairs, it doesn't matter what size you are. If you're out of shape, you're out of shape. And what was interesting is that I got on the treadmill and I did maybe a quarter of a mile, just a quarter. And then I did something one day, and I put my, my jacket, my little jogger jacket on top of the screen where I couldn't see the numbers.
Good trick.
Yeah, I couldn't see how long, I couldn't see how far. So I was just like, like just get out of your head, out of your head. And literally when I took it off, it said over a mile. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I could do it all along. And that's why I like your title, like Can Do Coach. Like, what is that like for you? Like, out of all the titles you could have gone with, like, what really spoke to you the most about that?
So I'm a big believer that we are amazing. Like as humans, we are incredible. So to go into your story about running a mile, I'm with you, Nazra. I'm not a runner. Like it's not something I love to do. But do you know what? We don't have to be good at everything. And it's about finding what is our unique ability? What are we good at? What do we love to do? And embrace that. I think with social media especially, that we get so hung up on looking at everyone else and thinking, oh, I can't do that, or I'm not like that person, or they're doing this and I'm not. And there's a lot of like people trying to, I even see it in my daughter, like she's like watch a lot of TikTok and does the dancing, and there's a lot of replication that goes on. And I really do think that it's about uniqueness. And it's embracing your uniqueness and being proud of that. So for me, I think we can do anything we want, So I think that the limits that we put on ourselves are our own limits. So if we really want to do something, we wouldn't get the idea to do it if we couldn't do it.
Right.
So if we get an idea to do something, go for it, have that belief. And sometimes I find that clients don't have that belief in themselves. I mean, I remember a time when I didn't have that belief in myself. I used to be shy with a terrible self-esteem, and I just didn't believe in myself in any way. But that's through work, like I've done a lot of work, has developed over the years. So I guess I know how I said before that we're all the same, right? So if I can do it, you can do it, and anyone else can do it. So that's where Can Do Coach comes from. So my role as a coach is to believe in people until they believe in themselves. Ooh. And then they're able to go forth and do whatever makes them happy, because that's what I really like to focus on. And that's why I love the title of our podcast, is that we all need to live a life. We all need to make money. We all need to do all those adult responsibilities that we have to do as we're older. But the thing that I've noticed, that as I've got older and spoken to different people, there are a lot of people who are successful, but there's also a lot of those people who actually aren't genuinely happy. There are people who are both, but I think the key is if you can be genuinely happy, the rest will come. But the happiness is an inside job. That won't come from the new clothes or the new car or the new house. Like it just doesn't work like that. You might go out and go shopping and buy something and go, that might make you feel good for a moment.
Right.
But ultimately it's inside. So I'm more interested on the inside job and helping people radiate happiness rather than try to find things to externally make them happy.
Right. And I totally agree with that. Just anytime I've had any kind of a goal, whether it was get a car or what have you, I started feeling the happiness first. And I would just like make myself say, oh, my car, even though I didn't have a car yet, just to kind of get myself into that mindset of knowing what that was like to say it, so that by the time I got the car, it was like, yeah, this just feels right. It felt good. But had I just like gone external to begin with, like from the beginning, I don't think that, I don't think I would have enjoyed the process of the journey of just kind of, saying my car. Yeah. I love that.
To a degree, there's getting in the right vibration to be attracting the good that you want. And I mean, it's coming from a different place. I really do think that you work from the inside out rather than the outside in. And I think that once you get a grasp on that, everything will change. So I remember someone said to me once, they're like, you're too much in your head, Leanne. I'm like, huh? What do you mean? And then they said, like, there's your head and there's your heart. And at that stage, I was young and I really didn't understand what they really started talking about. But I'm in a place now where it's like, yeah, you still think about stuff, but I operate from here. And the minute you start doing that, do you ever, you might experience this, like you just have some days and you're just driving along or walking along and you just feel and radiate love.
Yes.
And just gratitude. And I think when you really have that, you experience true happiness, and it wouldn't matter what you had or where you were, that feeling is inside.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. That's so great. This is a great like lead in for our next question. So, you know, I know I've personally noticed, and I know a lot of other people have noticed as well, like the life coaching industry is like a very rapidly growing industry, which I think speaks for itself. But why do you think that that is? And, you know, why even have a life coach to begin with?
Yeah. I think people feel stuck.
Yeah.
So like I said with the PT before, you can have strategies and you go off and try and implement them, but for some reason they don't work because there's deeper underlying things. So by working with a coach, I think it's a huge thing is accountability.
Yes.
Right? So you can tell yourself you're going to do something, but if you don't do it,
yeah,
who's going to know? You know, like we let ourselves down more frequently than we let other people down. And it doesn't matter. Well, it does, but no one knows we're doing it. Even though it's beating us down inside, no one else knows we're doing it. So to have a coach, it gives you that accountability. So if you have a session and you say, okay, this is where I'm going to go, and this is my plan for this fortnight or this week, and off you go and do it. And when you come back, you say, so how did you go with that? Like, what steps did you take to move towards what it is you want? And they kind of go, well, you know, didn't really do anything. And that's when you start asking the questions, well, why? What got in the way? Why did it get in the way?
Right.
How can you overcome those particular obstacles? And that's really difficult to do on your own, because on our own, we operate from one perspective. We have our life experience. So we're looking out from our life experience. When you're working with a coach, you've got another perspective. So the role of the coach isn't to tell people what to do. It's to ask good questions of people so they can discover that for themselves. Because so if I was coaching you, Nazra, the best person who knows what's best for you is you. Right. There's no point me telling you what my opinion is, because that might be what's best for me, but you might go, well, that's not going to work for me.
Right.
Yeah. So I think to have a coach, you have someone, it's like someone to walk alongside with you and to ask you the questions to get you to think, why am I not doing what I'm doing? Yeah. So I think that's really a great explanation of why I think it's so beneficial. And it just helps people move forward. And coaching isn't something that you need to do forever.
Yeah.
Like you can come and go from coaching, or you can continue coaching. It depends on your journey. It depends where you're at on your journey. So there's so many different factors as to how you can do it.
Definitely. I totally agree with that, because it's something about when you, like how you said, like you're thinking kind of from your experience only, but just to have that sounding board of someone like says, well, why? I mean, sometimes I think we ask ourselves why, but it's more of a rhetorical why. Yeah. And I think to make that transition from a rhetorical why, oh, I don't know, I've just always done it, as opposed to you saying why. And it just sort of kind of puts you on the spot of like, it makes you think. It does.
And it's uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. And clients have said that to me, like, that made me feel really uncomfortable. And it's like, well, it's meant to, because it's challenging your ideas. So if we don't start challenging your ideas and the beliefs that you currently hold, you're going to keep doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Right. So we're going to keep running around in circles. And that takes me back to why I have a coach and why do I think the industry is growing? Because I feel like people are acknowledging that they're running around in circles and don't know why.
Yes.
So to be able to get off that roundabout and start moving forward, sometimes it just needs a couple of strategies and just a realization that I didn't even realize I was doing that. I didn't even realize I was thinking in that way. How interesting. What if I did that slightly different?
Yes. Oh, that's huge. I love that because I think you're right. It's so important to have that person like in your life. Like you can either do it with a coach or you can do it with someone else. You can do it with coach and do it with someone else. And it's just really just about that kind of personal accountability. And sometimes it comes in the form of someone else holding you accountable. But the fact that you sought out a life coach to begin with is a way in which you hold yourself accountable because you're like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but let me give this a shot and like, let me see how far it can take me.
On the point of, and so when you can say you can do it with someone else, you definitely can. I think sometimes we can rely on our friends and family and loved ones. Unfortunately, they don't always challenge us. They love us, right? Mm-hmm. So they just want us to be happy. So sometimes if we challenge a family or friend or loved one and they don't enjoy that challenge, what do? You'll back down because you don't want to upset them. So although the accountability side of things works really well, and if you have a friend who's great at challenging you, that's wonderful. But I caution, as much as family, friends, and loved ones are amazing, sometimes they don't challenge you in the same way to get you to think differently because they love you as you are, right? They don't think you need to change. This is an inside thing that you're having the feeling that something's not right. They don't see that. They don't think anything's wrong. So I guess it's coming from a different perspective. So having a coach is that external party. So you've got no interest, although you care about your client, you care about their growth to grow into what it is they want to achieve. So if they're telling you one thing and they're not doing it, you're going to go, well, why and how do we bridge that gap?
Right. I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
And tell us like what role like comfort zone and self-image, and commitment, you've kind of already touched on these things, but we'll just go a little bit deeper into it. What role do these components have on changing versus remaining the same?
Yeah, huge. So the comfort zone, I find that such an interesting concept because I was only talking to a friend last night at dinner and she was saying to me, she said, but I like how things are just the way they are. It's very comfortable. And I'm like, comfortable, is this? So we get in this flow sometimes if it feels comfortable, but as humans, we are designed to grow. And if you look at the laws of life, we either create or we disintegrate. So if you have a look at a flower or a fruiting tree, it's going to grow, it's going to flower. Does the flower stay there? Does that piece of fruit stay beautifully ripe on the tree? Nope. Mm-hmm. Once it does its thing, it has to go the other way by law, so it starts to die. And we kind of work in the same way that if we aren't moving forward in some capacity, although it seems like we're staying the same, we're actually not. So I think the comfort zone, this is where we can start going around in circles. We can start feeling a bit down and we don't know why because we are goal-seeking mechanisms. Yes. So to be able to be in your comfort zone, I'm a big believer of do something a little bit outside of your comfort zone. Yeah, sometimes it makes you feel sick. Like it's awful. It's an awful feeling when you get those nerves and, it's just, you think, oh my gosh, and you start questioning and what starts to come in is the fear, doubt, worry, concern, lack of confidence, all of these mental barriers when we approach the edge of our comfort zone all start hitting us saying why we can't do it.
Right.
Their own limitations, right? So I truly believe that most people have something they would really love to do. If they knew they wouldn't fail and they could just go for it, whether it's being an artist or sewing a dress or getting a new job, or, everyone has different goals, but we stay in our comfort zone because we're afraid we might fail.
Right.
So have a goal that's worth failing for. What do you really want? So what's going to, this goes back to the why. What's your why? And the thing I love is, how bad do you want it? If you don't want it bad enough, don't even bother, because you're not going to do it. But if you want it, like if you wake up every day with that goal in mind going, that is what I want.
Right.
You're going to push your comfort zone naturally. It's because you have to do it. You can't grow without it. So this is where the self-image feeds into that comfort zone, because our self-image comes about through, like, okay, so you just said before about the running. So even as a child, you had in your mind, through that conditioning, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Very much.
How many of us? And you didn't do that on purpose.
No, I literally believed it. I thought I could not do it. I was just one of those people, one of the only 2 kids in the whole PE that could not do it.
Yep. And we have all of these experiences growing up. So if you have a think about our mental barriers, we don't just go to the store and say, I wonder what mental barriers I'd like to add to my toolbox. We just don't do that. Our mental barriers come from our parents, our schooling, our peer groups, our experiences. And the thing is as we're growing up from infants to young adults, we're not even aware of what's going into our mind a lot of the time. And so unfortunately, we have all of these ideas of who we are. This is the kind of person I am. All of these are set in there. So then when we grow up and we want to go out and do something different that challenges that, these ideas that we hold that aren't even true sit in here. And they come up every time that we want to do something. I'd love to do this, but remember, I'm that kind of person who doesn't fit.
Right.
So this is how self-image really impacts what we do. And self-image is in itself, Nazra, it's such a massive subject. Start by writing a list of 20 reasons. Why do you want it? Right? So that way it starts to develop a bit of an idea. So the first 5 reasons might be really easy. But when you start nutting down, I don't want you to stop at 5. I want you to write 20, because your 5 reasons are going to be your surface reasons. So just say, let's just throw it out there, I'd like to lose weight. That's a really common thing that I hear lots of people say, I'd like to lose weight.
Sure.
So, okay, that's fine. You've got your 5 reasons. I'd like to fit into clothes, or I'd like to be a bit fitter. I'd like to feel better. They're your surface reasons. What are the deeper reasons that you want to be able to stay around and see your kids, that you want to be able to feel attractive to your partner, that you like? Everyone has different reasons, but I guarantee you can find 20 if you really look for it. And that will help you with that commitment, because it grows your why.
Yes, I love that. And I think that actually exercising these principles ourselves definitely helps anyone who is, an influential person to a child, whether they're a big sister, a big brother, or a parent. And I think this is a great segue into the next portion of our show, which is because I understand, Leanne, that you are a mom to 2 beautiful children. So how old are your children now?
My son is nearly 15 and my daughter is nearly 13.
Okay, very cool. And I know that you're developing a new online program for other single co-parenting moms. Tell us a little bit more about this program and its role in your life, both personally and professionally as a life coach.
Yeah, so this is kind of stemmed out. It's something I've wanted to do for a little while, because I've lived the experience and I feel like I've lived it quite successfully. And I wouldn't say it's been easy. It's been really challenging. There's ups and there's downs, and you've really got to be resilient through the whole process. But really what I found is that when my husband and I got divorced, I became like a single mum at the time. So I had the kids full time, and that was fine, right? So you just go about as per normal. You're one person down, but you cope. And like that's that initial stage. But then I went to the co-parenting arrangement. And so I was a stay-home mum, and then from going from that to being a single mum to not having my children at all, I felt this great degree of loss. And I actually didn't know who I was. I'm like, I was a wife, and I was the mum, and I was the housekeeper, and you have these roles that you do in that. And then all of a sudden I didn't have children every second week. I'm like, oh my gosh, who is Leanne? So I went through a real discovery of who I was as a person and what I really loved to do. So I picked up a guitar for the first time in my life, and I learned how to play guitar. And that was a journey in itself, and something that, so 5 years down the track, I ended up on the stage at a country music festival, playing a song that I'd written. Then, and like 5 years before that, I'd never thought that I would have been able to even achieve that. So the first part of the program, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating journey. But the first part of the program, I really look at rediscovering who you are. Yes. Like realizing where you are, and that it can be a sad place. It can be a really challenging place, and knowing that that's okay. And there is a way to be able to work through that. But who we are as people, it's realizing, who are we again? Because before we have kids, we're our own person. Like we live our life and do our thing. But that changes when you become a parent. You kind of do everything for your kids and forget a little bit about yourself. So the first part of the program looks at that in the first module. And then the second part looks at, once again, this is because I went through it myself, is releasing a lot of the stuff that's holding you stuck. So a lot of us can hold resentment or sadness or anger, all sorts of different emotions that can hold us in a period where we just can't move forward. And like I was saying before, so holding on to the past isn't going to serve us. Sometimes the past really sucks, like it does. And sometimes it's just not our fault that things happen in the way that they happen. But we can continue to hold on to that, or we can choose today to release that. And how do we move forward? So from this moment on, we can start to find happiness. So it starts to kind of look at that area. And then the second one is renew. So renewing yourself as a person. How do you be a good parent? How do you be a happy parent? How do you work with the kids and help them be happy kids? Like I look at my kids and I think, gosh, you're such resilient little things. Like I'm just so proud of them, because it's challenging. It's really challenging. But I think as a parent that if we can be happy, that flows on. So you hear that the quote, I think it's the cup that's run over. Like if you think of like, if you have a teacup and it's empty, how can you flow over and give to other people? You just can't do it, because you don't have that love, that energy, that enthusiasm to give to anyone else, because you're trying to find it for you. But if we can change the focus back and start looking at ourselves and putting value on us as people, we can still love the heck out of our kids, but we then elevate ourselves, and our flow over impacts everybody.
Yeah, and they get more of you. They get more of like your authentic self, not, just mom with the calendar and soccer practice and this and that and all these, and you're just kind of blowing up. And I recently saw a post on Instagram where it was this woman who she took a weekend away from her kids. just like rented a hotel room and like just sat and watched TV or whatever she wanted, painted her nails and did all of these things, and took a hot bath without kids running in and things like that. And I just think, wow, like if people just were able to do that more and pour more into themselves, how much of a happier version of you, how much of a whole version of you that your kids would actually get to experience, and it would change their entire experience of you.
Absolutely. Can I share a story kind of along those lines?
Yes.
So I only a couple of years ago, I had a goal for about 8 years that I wanted to do like a bodybuilding competition, just like in the bikini type category. So it's a massive commitment to undertake something like that. And I felt guilty the whole time because it took time away from my kids when I trained. I couldn't eat the same meals that they ate. Like we had to alter our lives to a degree. Like they still had me in person, but we couldn't do the same things that we could normally do, right? Because I was focusing on that goal for myself.
Right.
And honestly, I was really torn through many, many periods of that time. But then at the end of it all, when I got up on stage, I got second place. So I was so proud. And the kids came along, and you know what? They were so proud of me. Like you never know. So you sometimes think that because you're doing something for you, you're taking something away from your children. But your children love you just as much, and they wanted to see me succeed as much as I want to see them succeed. And it was something that I didn't expect.
Wow, that's so great. And I think that more parents need to hear more of that narrative of it's okay to put me first. Sometimes it's okay for me to still do this thing or that thing or accomplish this goal, because sometimes I think, and I don't know what your take is on this, like it can almost cause like a little bit of like resentment, like either towards yourself or even like a little bit towards just having to be a parent, just by feeling like you have to put certain things on hold. You could have very well have put that on hold until they were 18, but you chose, you know what, I want to do this now. I mean, like, what is your take on that for parents, whether they're single parents or co-parenting or what their situation is? What is your feedback to them on just, hey, like, seize it if you can?
I think it's definitely assess it. And how important is it to you? Because I will say that, especially career-wise, I've made many choices to facilitate the care of my kids. Right. So there are different decisions that we make through the whole process. There isn't one decision and then that covers everything. You have to assess things as they come up. And as something comes up, you say, okay, is this worth it? And as I was saying, how I felt guilty going through that process at times. Right. You have to weigh that up. You've got to weigh it up as, does it sit okay with you as a person to do it? And do you feel like the kids are going to benefit to some degree from it? So from the way I looked at that experience, I was role modeling to them what it's like to achieve and succeed. You know, It's about setting a goal, working your butt off until you reach that goal, and showing them that process, that this is hard. Yeah. Things in life aren't handed to you. So if you really want something bad enough, you have to put in the work. And so for me, there was a positive aspect there for my kids to watch me go through that process. So everyone's very different, but definitely what you said, I really think that we are, just because we become parents, it doesn't mean we're no longer important. Right. And if we're not happy parents, we're not that good for the kids anyway, because I know when I'm not feeling great, I'm more snappy and I've got less patience. And, you know, if you're like that all the time, that can be a really negative environment for the kids. So it would be better off you putting that time into yourself and taking a little bit of time away from them and being happy for the rest of the time, than having that resentment or, I don't know, just crankiness because, I can't do anything for myself. And, you know, I think it's a balance. You've got to assess everything. But I think that going back to comfort zone, if we don't show our children how to expand our comfort zone and how to grow personally, how are they going to know how to do it? They watch us, you know, and as you said before, it doesn't matter if you're a sibling or a parent or an aunt or an uncle. They watch us all the time. They're watching what we're doing and they learn from our actions, not from our words. They learn from what we do. So it's about leading the way.
Yes, definitely. And I love how you took that and you turned it into a teachable moment, because I think that if we can almost reframe it a little bit that way, if we can find other ways in order to accomplish whatever the goal is. And I know that's not an easy goal, because I actually had a friend who did a competition very similar to that years ago. And she was, it was a very, very, very strict diet, very strict workout routine. And this, you know, in her 20s. So it's just like, I just can imagine, you know, when you're cooking for multiple people in your home and it's just, you're over here eating your fish and they're over here eating their pasta or whatever it is. And you're like, oh, but I love
That's exactly what it was.
I love it, because that's so great, because it teaches kids that not everything is easy, you know, not everything is so simple and just, you know, natural for everyone. There was like this really, I'll butcher the quote, of course, if I try to do it, but it's this from Ed Milet. He has this like really great podcast that I watch, and he was saying how, you know, sometimes it's not the person that's the most inspiring is not the person who's really great at it, but the person that is really having a tough time with it and does it anyway. And I love when we can have those teachable moments, you know, as anyone that, especially kids, that kids look up to, because their little minds are so, you know, neuroplastic and, you know, just so moldable, and they'll learn things instinctively, not even realizing that they're learning it. You know, that they'll carry on for the rest of their lives. So I think that's so beautiful.
Absolutely. You don't even know what you're teaching your kids a lot of the time. And I look at some of the instances that the kids have come back to me and said things like as a parent, anyone out there listening as a parent is going to know that sometimes you think, are these kids taking on anything that I say? Like you just question if they're even listening to you some of the time. Right. But then every now and again, they'll come back and they'll just say something. They'll say something really motivating or really caring. And it's things that you've said to them. It's like, you listen. But going back to that competition, I know that when I was considering doing another one, and I ended up, how I said, weigh up your priorities. I decided, you know what, it's not, I've ticked it off my list. I did that. I had the experience. And I said that to the kids, and I was saying, so guys, what would you think that if I did another competition? Like that was a discussion I had to have with them, because it did take time away from them, right? But you know what they came back and said to me, Nazra?
What?
My daughter, she goes, Mum, if that's what you want to do, we'll support you, because we know how happy you were last time.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
So you just never make assumptions of what you think your kids want. Have that discussion with them. So if you are really torn, so if you're weighing up your options, think, I'd love to do this, but I don't really know if that's the right thing to do, talk to your kids about that. Like, tell your kids why you want to do it. Tell the kids what it means to you to be able to do that. See a way that you can get them on board to the journey so they can become excited by it as well. It's just finding different ways to be able to work together as a family. And when you're co-parenting or you're a single parent, you are the family. Like, I've got all these photos up behind me, and they're just all of me and the kids, because we are the family. But that's okay. It's working out how do you communicate and make that work as your family unit.
Oh, I love that. That's fantastic. So it sounds like definitely with this program, moms and dads both can like very like equally, benefit from it.
Yeah, look, the principles of the ideas it doesn't matter if you're male or female. It just has no context really, the principles. The reason why I'm probably focusing it towards single mums more so is because I've lived that experience.
Right.
So I can speak from my own personal experience of what it's like to be a single and co-parenting mum. Whereas from a dad's perspective, I could imagine there are differences into how it feels and the requirements and the way things are looked. I've spoken to a couple of single dads about it, and they've definitely spoken about some different aspects, even just about the way society views that. It's the same but different. So I guess that's probably why I'm focusing it more to the single mums, just because of that experience. But of course, the principles of the course apply to everybody.
Definitely. I can definitely see how, because, everyone wants to have some way of incorporating balance into their lives, having these teachable moments for their kids and the different modules that you use. So I can definitely see that. And I also know, like right now during COVID, such a weird, wacky, wild 2020, like never before. So I know a lot of parents right now are having even more challenges, especially I think, people who are co-parenting and they still want to have that sense of autonomy or privacy or whatever it is. Like, what do you feel like, what do you find like some of the challenges are that, single parents are like experiencing because of COVID, right now, and like what kind of tools, are used to kind of more effectively manage those?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I noticed with COVID when everything got locked down, so the situation in Australia is a little bit different to the situation in the States with possibly how things were managed. So we were all locked down, and Melbourne have just been let out of lockdown, the lucky people. So the challenges that really presented for people was that normally kids would go off to school, you'd go off to work. So you get a little bit of a breather, right? Yeah. But when we had lockdown, everyone was together all the time. The schools were closed. You had to homeschool from home. You couldn't go to work, so you were working from home. So what it did for parents was it caused a lot more stress and anxiety, because as a parent, I was fortunate because my kids are teenagers, so they don't bother me as much and appreciate that I'm at work than toddlers or smaller children do. That I work with colleagues, and they were just like, oh my gosh, just the time trying to juggle. And I think the biggest thing in a situation like that is allowing yourself to take that time out. So how you said about like just a mum that goes to a hotel, COVID's a very different situation, but even if it's just get out and go for a walk, if you're a single parent, if you have a neighbour who can watch the kids for half an hour and just say, I just need to go out for a walk, or you can drop them to your parents and just say, Mum, I need to go out and just have a coffee, or just still be able to take that time. Because I think what puts a lot of pressure on things is not having time out.
Yes.
So being able to find a way. And you're right, Nazra, COVID is such a strange, crazy situation that we've gone through globally. And it's hopefully things are going to ease up soon, and we're going to go back to some degree of normality. But I think the challenges on top of that are people who've lost their jobs. So that puts another massive pressure on families. And that's one of those unsolvable things that is not an easy fix, right? If you don't have a job and you can't find one, what do you do? And this is where I guess really we have to start using the mindset tools of trying not to let that anxiety run away, and looking at, well, what can we do now? And what are the best ways to take those steps forward, reframing in a more positive way? Because life, it's not a great situation if that's the situation people are in. And
right.
it's tough no matter what. But I guess the question you've got to ask is, can you change it? And if the answer is no, not right now, what can you do to manage in a way that you don't send yourself crazy and be able to move forward to then be able to get yourself in a better situation? So a lot of that is really working with acceptance as a massive strategy. That's a hard thing. It shouldn't be this way. Well, no, it shouldn't. And it's terrible that it is, but it is. So accept it, be okay with that right now. And what can you do to look forward? What are some, so to be able to generate ideas, we have to be creative.
Right.
Our creativity is blocked if we are under too much stress. We can't think. Like, have you ever felt that stress that you just can't think straight?
Can't think, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like thinking in circles and you just can't get off that wheel.
Yep. Yep. And it's tricky, and you can't be creative and try and think of a way out when you're running around in circles. So I guess it's situations like that where I would really encourage people. I mean, we've got the internet is such an amazing resource at our fingertips. Do some reading, find some strategies, watch some YouTube clips, anything that can help switch you from a negative to a positive mindset. The first thing is to accept your situation, because it is what it is and we can't change it, but we can look at how we want to change it and take those steps. So really, to have the internet there and all of these free resources online and great speakers who have all of this positive TED Talks. I think TED Talks are amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And you might go, well, that's not going to help my situation right now. Well, no, it's not. But it's going to put you in a better headspace for you to be able to creatively come up with an idea of how you can change a situation.
Yes, definitely. I think that is one of the, I will say, like, one of the silver linings in all of this is that it's happening in a day and age where we have so much information right at our fingertips. I can't imagine going through this, say 30 years ago, like in the 90s or something. What would we have done? We wouldn't have Zoom. We wouldn't have really, I know how big Google was in like the early 90s, but still, I just can imagine just how, there is a way in which we can use technology to our benefit to, like you said, listen to a TED Talk, like just kind of like work on becoming more solution oriented, and that, more growth mindset makes such a huge difference.
It's finding ways to flip the switch.
Yes.
So if we don't have those if we're not in the habit of thinking positively and reframing something to a positive kind of framing, we need something external to flip the switch. That's what a coach does. But a lot of people, if they don't have a job, they don't have the finances to have a coach. So there are so many free resources that you can find things that you can flip the switch. And the beautiful thing with that, so I have done so much reading in my own personal development, but I'm constantly doing it every single day. It never stops.
Right.
So it's about people who are in their personal development journey, keep doing it. People who haven't started their personal development journey, start and don't stop. Like, it's a never-ending thing to retrain the way that our mind automatically works, really. We're negatively wired by instinct.
Right. I totally agree with that. So that kind of like leads us into like kind of what some of the tools are as a single parent that you use, and that kids or your others can observe to like kind of reframe what a modern family looks like. Because I know we have, a lot of pictures still of like this typical, two-parent home. And some people, like me personally, I grew up with, my parents for a while until they divorced. And then it was me, my mother and my grandparents. And then it was my mother and a grandparent. And at the time I was growing up in the town that I grew up in, that was not always the norm, you know? So what kind of tools do you think, like for you and, you know, your kids or other kids that are applicable towards reframing that?
Yeah, I think kids are funny. Kids are quite adaptable. And I've always said to the kids that isn't it better to have two happy homes than one unhappy home? And, you know, I think it's really about framing it in the way and reminding the kids that they're loved.
Yes.
And I think that if the kids feel loved, it doesn't actually matter where they are. And in the way that we are, how we have access to all the social media and the internet, and the thing that I've noticed about my kids personally is they're so aware, Nazra. They're so aware of all of these gender issues and gender, like all the differences, and that's okay, and the way that different families are, and that's okay. And so I think the beautiful thing about it is because all of this stuff isn't, so back in the 90s, we didn't know about a lot of this stuff. Right. Whereas now it's very prominent. So the kids see it and go, oh, that's just a normal part of life. So their adaptability is very different to ours. And they even challenge me sometimes with things they say that I'm like, oh, you know about that? How interesting. And I think, look, the tool that I've probably used through the whole thing with my children is to be open and honest. Don't hide things from your children. And I mean, well, some you can't tell. It's age appropriate, of course. But if they ask you a question, answer that in an age appropriate way, but don't try and pad it, because what we want to do with our children is build resilience. Yeah. So by not being honest with our children and by padding things, well, this is just from personal experience, but my kids are really resilient and they know that I've always told them the truth, and we've always had a conversation if something hasn't been right. But from the parent's point of view, we touched on this before, but having acceptance for the situation, I think, is the first hurdle. Because if as a parent, we can't accept the situation that we're currently in, that brings up a lot of negative emotion. And that flows on. Like I was talking about the cup that flows over with love and joy. Well, the cup actually flows over, but it's with negativity. And that really doesn't serve the kids at all. So going back as a parent and having acceptance and finding out, well, how can I reframe my situation so that I can be happier as a parent? Because that's what I truly believe that's the crux of the whole thing. If you can be a happy parent, the kids will be happy children, because it flows on. So yeah, I think as for a parent, finding that acceptance is the first and probably most difficult step.
Yeah, especially if they're making the transition, because, you know, I know, like, for me, you know, growing up in a typical kind of two-parent home, and I know, like, my mother had to go through this whole kind of like identity, you know, like change of, okay, now I'm like living at home with my parents, and then, you know, my grandfather passed away, and there's like, okay, now, you know, the male role was gone, and there's just like so many things that I feel like are all like opportunities to kind of reframe who you are, like the new version of yourself, you know. And I mean, I remember like kind of kids sometimes saying like, oh, like, is it hard for you, like, not, you know, living with your dad? And I was like, no. Like, and I wasn't saying it to like make anybody feel better or like in denial. It was just, my mom was happy, and my grandmother was happy, and my grandfather, you know, until he passed, was happy. Like, and it was just, it was normal. It was my normal. It just looked different. But I do appreciate that about today, that we are a lot more open-minded than before, for sure.
Yeah, I think it depends, and it's having a thick skin as well. Like, as you said, I mean, having comments like that, you could have started questioning, well, oh, is there something wrong with that? Like, you know, but it's having a thick skin. And as a parent, I know people have said to me, oh, it must be so hard for your kids to be from a broken home. It's like, my home's not broken.
Right.
Like, you know, so it's the way you see things. Everyone's situation is different. And if you look globally, we all live differently anyway. There is no one right way. So as long as everyone's happy and your children are happy, why does it matter? And you'll always have the opinions of other people, but everyone has an opinion, right? It's
Right.
simply that. It's simply their opinion. And you don't have to take that on board.
Right.
So I really do think look, don't worry about what anyone else kind of thinks. Mm-hmm. Worry about what makes you happy and what works for your family. Right. And focus on that. Because where we put our focus is where we start moving to. So if we're worried about what other people are thinking about, we're going to start questioning ourselves. Of like this social media thing that I said earlier about this comparison. Right. We're going to start comparing and going, oh, well, my family's not like this family, or we don't do this. And don't do that. Yeah. Because that's not you. Be uniquely you and do it your way.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this. It's been so great. So before I ask my last question, where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, the best place to connect with me is Instagram. So Can Do Coach on Instagram. I will be releasing my program coming up the 1st of March next year. So if you follow me, you'll definitely see things as they come out leading to that launch. So I'm very excited, and I'd love to have you as a part of that.
Oh, definitely. Fantastic. I love it. Cool. So for my last question, what keeps you inspired?
My children.
Yes.
So they're really a massive reason for me. So going on from the co-parenting thing, now that they're teenagers, my children have very recently decided that they want to live with their dad and his wife. So that has been another adjustment for me. And for me to be able to hold the children as my inspiration, it means that it just drives me even more to be the best person I can be, to show them and lead the way for them, but also be able to help other people, because I really do feel like now it's been hard. It's been a really tough 10 years, but I've come out of it, and I can truly say that I am so happy. And life is so wonderful. Is it perfect? No, life is never perfect, but it's wonderful. And if I can help other people in the context of coaching, be it general anyone or specifically single parents or co-parenting parents, because I've had that experience and I got through it, it's just wonderful. I really do feel like I'm here to help and inspire other people be the best versions of themselves. Because like I said, we all have so much potential. We just have to believe in it.
Absolutely. Very well said. Thank you again for joining us from Australia. And we will definitely be in touch. Check her out on her Instagram, and I will have this posted in our chat, and let us know your comments. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.